In a quiet mountain town where fog often swallowed the streets before sunset, there was an old cemetery that most people avoided, not because it was haunted, but because of the man who lived there. Kato Mori had been the gravekeeper for 7 years. Every morning before the town woke up, he walked through the rows of moss-covered gravestones, brushing fallen leaves away, straightening flowers left by grieving families. He spoke very little. Some said he was rude. Some said he was strange, but the truth was simpler. Kaito just didn't believe he deserved to be part of the living world anymore. One spring afternoon, someone new came to the cemetery. Her name was Hana Tsukishima. She was 26 with tired eyes and a soft voice that carried the weight of someone who had recently lost something important. She came looking for a grave, but she couldn't find it. After wandering for nearly an hour, she finally approached the small wooden cabin near the cemetery gate. Kato was repairing a broken stone lantern when she spoke. "Excuse me." Her voice was gentle, but slightly trembling. "I'm looking for someone." Kato glanced up. "Named Tsukishima Haruto." Kato paused for half a second, then stood up. "Follow me." The grave was in the quietest part of the cemetery, near a tall cherry tree that bloomed late every spring. Hana stared at the stone, her brother's name carved into cold gray granite. She hadn't been able to attend the funeral. Work distance, regret, so many excuses that now felt meaningless. "Thank you," she said softly. Kato simply nodded and turned to leave. But before he could walk away, Hana asked something unexpected. "Do you visit them often?" Kato stopped the dead. "Yes, every day." Hana looked at the endless rows of graves. "That must be lonely," Kato answered quietly. "Not as lonely as the living." After that day, Hana started visiting the cemetery often. Sometimes she brought flowers, sometimes just silence. At first, she and Kato barely spoke, but slowly, small conversations began to form, about the weather, about the cherry blossoms, about how strangely peaceful cemeteries could feel. One evening while the sun was fading behind the mountains, Hana sat near her brother's grave and asked, "Why did you choose this job?" Kato didn't answer immediately. Finally he said, "Someone has to stay with them." "With who?" "The people. Everyone else eventually stops visiting." Hana looked at him carefully. "You sound like you're protecting them." Kato shrugged. "Maybe." Weeks turned into months. Their distance never fully disappeared, but something quiet and fragile grew between them. Not dramatic, not obvious, just a strange comfort in each other's presence. Sometimes Hana would bring tea and sit outside Kato's small cabin. Sometimes Kato would silently place fresh flowers on her brother's grave before she arrived. Neither of them mentioned it. One summer evening, as cicadas screamed in the trees, Hana asked a question that had been bothering her. "Kato, why do people in town avoid you?" Kato kept cleaning a gravestone. "They don't, they do." Silence, then he sighed. "Because they remember." "Remember what?" Kaito's voice became quieter. "The accident." Hana frowned. "What accident?" But Kaito didn't answer. He simply walked away. For the first time since meeting him, Hana felt a wall she couldn't cross. Days passed, then weeks. Kaito became more distant. Short answers, avoided conversations. Hana didn't understand why. One afternoon she asked an elderly woman in town about him. The woman hesitated. "You really don't know?" "Know what?" The woman looked toward the mountain road. 7 years ago, there was a car crash near the cliffs. Hana felt a strange chill. "A young man died," the woman continued quietly. "And the driver survived," Hana whispered. "Kaito." The woman nodded. "They say he was drunk." Hana's stomach tightened. "What was the victim's name?" The woman answered softly. "Haruto Tsukishima." The world seemed to stop. Her brother, killed by the man she had been drinking tea with, talking to, slowly falling in love with. Hana ran to the cemetery. Kaito was standing under the cherry tree, as if he already knew she would come. Her voice shook. "You knew." Kaito didn't deny it. "Yes, you knew who I was." "Yes, why didn't you tell me?" His answer was barely audible. "Because I didn't deserve to speak to you." Tears filled Hana's eyes. "You let me sit here for months. I know you listened to me talk about my brother. I know." Her voice broke. "How could you do that?" Kaito looked at the grave. "Because I talked to him every day." Hana froze. "What? I've been apologizing to him for 7 years." The wind moved softly through the cherry blossoms. "I thought, maybe if I protected his grave, if I stayed here." His voice trembled slightly. "It would mean something," Hana whispered. "You think guarding a grave fixes killing someone?" "No." "Then why stay?" Kaito finally looked at her. "Because leaving would mean I forgive myself." Hana didn't come back for a long time. The cemetery returned to silence. Kaito continued his routine, cleaning, repairing, apologizing to the dead. Nearly a year later, during cherry blossom season, Hana returned. Kaito was trimming the grass near the graves when he noticed her. He froze. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, Hana walked to her brother's grave and placed fresh flowers. Then she turned to Kaito. "You should leave this place." Kaito frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because this punishment isn't for my brother anymore." He looked confused. "It's just for you." The wind carried petals through the air. Hana continued softly. "You took my brother away." Kaito lowered his eyes. "I know, but living here forever won't bring him back." Silence filled the space between them. Then she said something unexpected. "And it won't make me hate you less either." Kaito looked up. Hana's eyes were wet. "But it also won't make me love you less." The words hung painfully in the air. Love and grief tangled together. Impossible to separate, Kaito whispered. I never wanted you to feel that. I know. Another long silence. Then Hana asked quietly, will you leave the cemetery? Kaito looked at the graves around him, at the cherry tree, at the stone marked Haruto Tsukushima. Finally he nodded. Yes, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because staying meant their pain would never move forward. The next morning the town woke to find the gravekeeper's cabin empty. No goodbye, no explanation. Just freshly cleaned graves and new flowers under the cherry tree. Years later, Hana sometimes returned to the cemetery. She would sit beside her brother's grave and listen to the wind moving through the blossoms. And sometimes she wondered where Kaito had gone. Whether he had forgiven himself, whether he was still carrying the same quiet sadness. She never found out. But one thing she knew for certain was this. Some love stories do not end with people together. Some end with people walking away, so the other person can finally keep living.